So our first reading from St. Paul's letter to the Ephesians lays out just a couple verses that are really profound and really on point to relate to our gospel this morning. St. Paul urges the Christian community at Ephesus, learn the things that please God, but do not participate in the fruitless works of darkness. Instead, expose them. Everything that is exposed to the light becomes visible, and that which is visible is light. It's very profound. It's kind of confusing. But if we can come to understand what St. Paul is telling us to do and take it seriously, we can understand our gospel today and what Jesus is trying to teach us. Our gospel is from John chapter 9, and it's a very special gospel to me. It was this gospel that I heard on this same Sunday, the fourth Sunday of Lent, in 2011 in College Park, where I was called very profoundly to the priesthood. And for me to be able to now preach this gospel, to stand where Father Rob stood on that day, it's very humbling. But I already told that story. I told that story last year, so I got to come up with something new, you know? I think I got it. So the story of the man born blind, and remember, I always say this, context is everything. If we're trying to understand the Bible, we have to understand the context of the passage. That has to do with what's going on around it and to whom it's being addressed. Who is Jesus speaking and what prompts his speech? In this case, they saw the man born blind and his disciples asked, who sinned, this man or his parents? This was a very common belief in the ancient world. Handicaps, physical deformities, tragedies, it's all a result of your sin or God's punishing your parents through you, which is incredibly cruel. Plenty of people still think this is true. Plenty of good Christian men and women still operate with this mentality, and we have to stop. Because Jesus Christ himself tells us today it's not the way God works. Neither this man nor his parents sinned. Instead, he was born blind so that the power of God may be made known through him. So Jesus makes clay, puts it on his eyes, he washes, he can see. Everyone starts questioning him. What happened? The Pharisees question him. What happened? Pharisees have their doubts. So they go to his parents. Is this your son? Was he really born blind? He was, but he's old enough he can speak for himself. Then they go back to him. Say this man's a sinner. Whether he's a sinner or not, I do not know. What I know is I was blind and now I can see. And they question him, like, well, how did he heal you? I told you already, but you didn't listen. Do you want to become his disciples as well? Oh, we're disciples of Moses. Really? Because the one whom Moses prophesied would come is here. You don't seem to be following him. And the blind man gives a profound statement that we might not really appreciate just how theologically important what he says is. We know that God doesn't listen to sinners, but if one is devout and does his will, he listens to him. If this man were a sinner, he would not be able to do anything. Now, what the blind man's referring to is obviously the miracle. If he was a sinner, God wouldn't let him do these good works. But it's so much more profound. How much do each of us need to remember that it is not our own goodness, it is not our own intelligence, it is not our own strength by which we accomplish good works on earth. It is through God alone. And maybe we could all be a bit more humble by remembering that idea, remembering that truth, that all that I have is gift. God is the one who allows me to do everything I do. So then these wonderful, wonderful men yell at this guy and then kick him out. Jesus finds him. Another little tidbit. When you're out, when you're at your worst, when you're down, when you're low, you don't find God. God comes and finds you. That's another thing that's important to remember. And Jesus asked, do you believe in the Son of Man? Who is he? I'm him. And he worshiped him. I do believe, and he worshiped him. Now what we see is the Pharisees are there. That's blasphemy. He's worshiping a man. The Pharisees know the law, and so what must they do now, right? They take that man and they stone him on the spot. They stone him until he is dead. He's a blasphemer. He's an idolater. Is that what they do? No. Because Jesus says, the Son of Man has come for judgment, so that those who are blind might be able to see, and those who see might become blind. The Pharisees say, are we blind? If you were blind, you'd have no sin, but because you say you see, your sin remains. So at the end of this story, we see that this image of light and darkness, sight and blindness, while practically it is true. Physically, it's true, right? Jesus came to physically bring sight to the blind. And by the way, he also physically blinds some people. St. Paul, on the way to Damascus. And so literally speaking, what Jesus says is true. But that's not what he's talking about. He's talking about that those who are open, those who have faith, those who can put their selfishness and pride and vanity to the side and accept my word, their sins will be forgiven. But if we're wrapped up in our own self-righteousness, if we're wrapped up in our own goodness, if we're wrapped up in our own interpretation of the law, our sin will remain. Back to St. Paul, because that's what we need. We need that line from Ephesians to understand fully what Jesus is saying. Expose the darkness, because everything that's exposed becomes visible. Everything that's visible is light. We all have darkness within us. Do we admit it? Do we acknowledge it? Are we truthful with ourselves? That we've displeased God on occasion? That we've hurt others on occasion? That we've been self-righteous, prideful, vain, greedy? Or do we just tell ourselves, I'm okay, sure I'm a sinner, but God forgives me? Well, take that one image. Expose the darkness to the light. Do you do that? Because for Catholics, that means one thing: the sacrament of reconciliation. Going to confession, we quite literally expose our darkness. Maybe there's some other means that you do that. Maybe there's, I don't know, some sort of club that you belong to. If there are some other means by which you participate in exposing the darkness of the self to the light of God, please inform me on the way out of Mass today. I'd love to hear it. I'd love to know another way. Because I only know of one way. And what I know is that I do not hear nearly enough confessions for the size of our parishes. It's not even close. Now, maybe everyone's going down Central Avenue, the Holy Family. I get it. Some people just do not like going to confession with a priest that they know. But it's not everyone. I know it's not everyone. Because if that were true, Father Mike would call me and say, hey, I need your help hearing your people's confessions. I know for a lot of people it's been a long time. And I know for a lot of people there's fear, hesitation, bad memories, bad experiences. But if I'm a follower of Christ, and I take St. Paul's words seriously, there must be some way that I'm exposing the darkness. And the way that God wants us to do that is through confession. If I'm not making a regular confession, and the church asks that we go to confession at least once per year, I would recommend more than that. If I'm not doing that, I'm not living the life of grace. And I'm not going to pretend anymore that I'm living the life of grace. I'm not going to pretend that I'm holding up my end of the bargain. I'm not going to pretend that I'm utilizing the gifts God has given to human beings. I am foregoing some of those gifts because I know better, just like the Pharisees. Confession is the powerful means by which we avail ourselves of the darkness and God transforms it into light. That it might be light for the world to see. And how much more our world needs that light, brothers and sisters. Let's become it.